Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm finally breaking out of the training log hell that my channel has been in for the last 2 weeks or so. And so I'm bringing you this very late, I will admit, but here is how I added 50 pounds to my squat in 3 weeks. So I'm going to show you guys a couple videos here to show you the progression. So the first video is a 385 pound squat from December 2022. The depth is very poor, I would say. It's very clearly high. It also felt really uncomfortable on my joints, and I essentially just did not feel confident with the movement at this point. Now the second video is essentially a full year later with 455 pounds. Now, you'll be able to see this very clearly. The depth is improved tremendously, as well as a few technical changes that we'll go over, but most of all, there's 70 more pounds on the bar, and I gained probably about 3 inches of depth. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you guys how I made this kind of progress, and go over the fact that most of this progress was essentially over the course of about 3 or 4 weeks. Let's go over some variables here. So obviously there was a big time span between those two videos. The reason why this is titled 50 pounds in 3 weeks and not 70 pounds in 3 weeks is because I did a 410 squat to about, I would say, an inch above parallel, so maybe slightly lower than the 385, but still not powerlifting depth by any means, in about late February or March of 2023. And then from there, I essentially stopped squatting completely because I was pissed off and I felt like I was never going to make any progress. And so I essentially stopped squatting with the barbell for from March until about mid to late November of 2023. However, it is important to say in that time I was still deadlifting. I was still hitting my quads just with other movements like leg press, lunges, Bulgarian split squats. And in that time, I did gain a pretty good amount of weight. I was about 235 morning weight for that 455 squat. And I was about, I want to say somewhere in the realm of 222 to 224 for the 385 squat. Let's get into the program structure of what I actually did to put that much weight on the bar. To start, the program is split into 2 main training days. This is because the frequency for lower body training with barbells, both squat and deadlift combined, should be about 3 or 4 times per week. However, that includes both squat and deadlift. So you're really going to be limiting the training of lower body to 2 or 3 days. And I find that 2 days tends to work better for me because it allows you 2 full days of rest between each lower body day. Now, I personally do a asynchronous training split, which is a big brain way of saying that I don't fit my training schedule into 7, like a calendar week, into 7 days. So I do mine off of 6 days so that I just make sure to get those 2 full days of rest, and then I move on to the next week. Now, this is important because a lot of the medical and scientific literature says that the human body has both completely repaired muscularly in 2 full days and super compensated muscularly. That may not be true for tendons, bones, nervous system, but it at least ensures that you won't get a muscular injury. This is also designed to go alongside a heavy upper body routine. Those 2 days that you're not training lower body should be put toward upper body because holistic strength is important, as I've learned the hard way with my lagging poverty bench. But it also will account for the recovery ability that you're getting from only squatting 2 days a week, and squatting is not a horribly taxing movement compared to something like deadlifts, yoke runs, or long distance running. And finally, the only necessary equipment for this program is a barbell, plates, and a squat rack, which the vast majority of you are going to have access to. Now, I do have a bunch of recommended equipment listed. The more things you have access to, the better. but you don't want to give yourself training ADHD and you keep changing things over and over. Really, the staple of any good strength training program is just going to be a barbell and plates. Lastly, this program is designed for intermediate lifters. Don't do this if you're under a year of training. Just don't. And I would say that you guys should have your sleep and diet optimized, because if you do not have your sleep and diet optimized and your stress levels under control, this is probably going to be too much to recover from for most people. And this program does feature a lot of heavy lifting, so there's a certain risk for injury that you have to be able to mitigate and be aware of. With that said, here is day one. So day one is coined my specificity day, where I essentially work up to a heavy-ish set of 1 to 3 reps on my competition setup squat, or the form of squat that you are going to max out with. For me, I'm looking to do a powerlifting meet here soon, so I'm essentially doing a low bar squat in knee sleeves and a weightlifting belt. Now, the goal here with both the top set and the back down sets is you want to focus on the quality of your lift over the quantity and the weight on the bar. If you do, two sets of 2, or a set of 1 and then 2 sets of 3, or whatever you choose to do, because there is a pretty good range here, you want to make sure that all of these go to depth. They're all they're all extremely good quality. You're going to depth. You're not doing anything that feels excessively uncomfortable on one joint or another, and you are not putting yourself at risk of injury. Now, once you finish up with the comp squat, you're going to move down to either a front squat or an SSB squat. I used front squat because I don't have access to an SSB. That said, a safety squat bar is in my opinion the best squat variation for developing your squat. Now, you can't actually only train on an SSB and then just go max out on a low bar. It will throw off your technique and your timing. But for building up the muscles that are specific to the squat, such as the spinal erectors, upper back, quads, and hips, it is superior to other forms of squat, in my opinion. It also relieves you of a little bit of shoulder pain or shoulder discomfort if you're a bigger guy. Lastly, but not the least important part, is the accessories. So, in my opinion, for the vast majority of you listening to this, that's going to be your glutes, hamstrings, and lower back, collectively called your posterior chain. But if you are someone who's a little more advanced and you can hip thrust 6 plates, but you squat 3.5 plates, then you do probably have a quad weakness. There are ways to identify where your weakness is that I won't go into here, but the vast majority of people, especially those who come from an aesthetics point of view, already have very big and strong quads and relatively weak hamstrings and glutes. So you should do movements to target those, such as RDLs, such as 45-degree hip extensions are my lift of choice. Hamstring curls are good. You are not above generic bodybuilding work. That's essentially what this is. It's to balance out all of the very low rep, low RPE movements you're doing earlier in this training day. Now, to juxtapose this, we have the second training day, which is the novelty day. So the first day, we're focused on being as specific as possible with our stimulus to the comp squat. Now, on this day, we are looking to target the squat with as novel as of a stimulus as possible that is still very specific to a comp squat. So what that entails is essentially like the Westside Barbell Louis Simmons version of the max effort method. I would only take it to about an RPE 8.5 or 9. I would not go above RPE 9. It should essentially feel the way an opener would feel if you've ever done a powerlifting meet, maybe a little bit heavier than that. But it needs to be something that you are 100% certain that you can get, but it should be a little bit, just the tiniest little bit of a grind. Now, this will teach you to be able to struggle a little bit against heavier weight, and it will teach your nervous system to be able to adapt to working all of the muscles involved in a squat together in slightly different ways so that your nervous system never completely burns out. The key here is you have to rotate the variation that you do every week. If you do not, you run the risk of both mental and physical burnout. But it is a easy and recoverable way to essentially have a second very heavy single in your training week. Now, just like the comp squat was followed by a front squat, this is going to be followed by either a high bar squat or the SSB squat again. Now you might be thinking, hey, where'd the back downs go? Well, funny you ask that. I don't believe that back down sets are that important after doing a max effort single. You are not trying to get better at doing a front squat. You are not trying to work the technique of doing a front squat unless that is your competition lift. Your goal here is to build the low bar squat. That's what this program was designed for. So you're going to take the neurological gains from the max effort lift. You're going to say thank you, and then you're going to move on to more specific neural work in a high bar or SSB squat that also develops the muscles involved. Now you also might be thinking, hey, where's my deadlifts? Where should I put deadlifts in? This would be where I put it, is after all of the main barbell squatting. Now you can put this on day one between the front squat and the accessory lifts. It's really personal preference. I did both, and I actually kind of flipped throughout the 3 weeks. But this is where I would put something heavy to target the posterior chain. Now, essentially this is going to be any deadlift variation, preferably one that's more developmental and stretch focused. So I would not necessarily put conventional deadlifts here, although you could. I would do something more like an RDL, stiff leg deadlift, good morning, or a deficit deadlift, something that keeps the weight on the bar arbitrarily lighter and works on your weaknesses in the deadlift. This program is meant to essentially maximize your squat gains while having a little bit of background work for your deadlift. And then follow it up with the accessories. All right, bros. We need to have a conversation about squats and the mentality behind them. Most gym bro lifters, Johnny bodybuilders, especially when they first start out, do not like to squat. Believe it or not, even as a powerlifter, I was in this camp for a really long time. Now, I did eventually grow out of it. However, I went right back into that mentality when I got hurt. I hated squatting. So I spent about a year and a half injured. So I basically developed a double negative association, because while I was digging myself out of being afraid of squats because they were hard and I was getting crushed by the weight, I essentially had this second negative affirmation where every time I would squat, my hamstring/hip would hurt very badly because it was torn and continually retorn. So I had to reframe my mind after I was healed to where I felt like I did not dread and loathe having to go into squat. Having a positive mindset around working out is probably the most valuable thing you can have. You can have a really bad program and a really positive attitude and mindset, and you will go further than the person with the perfect program who half-asses all of his training because he hates it. Now, how do you start to like squats? So these are some of the things that I did. Now, there is an element of you just got to fucking do it to it, but there are some strategies you can do. So the main ones for me were the adjusting the training program to be more fun and also positive self-talk. I've been able to reframe my mindset to, instead of saying, I hate squatting, I suck at squatting, and a lot of these negative self-talk things, putting myself down essentially, I could say, hey, you know what? I'm actually pretty okay at squatting. I've turned a couple heads squatting in the gym, which is not saying a whole lot because I go to a commercial gym, but that on its own makes me think, maybe I'm actually pretty good at this. And then also this training program, part of the reason it has heavy singles is because they're fun. You're in the gym to have fun. It's a hobby. Don't make it so that your training is miserable. You want to make things productive, of course, but mainly more important than that is you want to make it fun. So those are the things that helped me the most. Visualization is also extremely important, but I would say it's more important when you've already kind of built that mindset and you're looking to visualize, a PR, visualize success, visualize whatever it might be, something specific rather than having it reframe your entire mindset. Okay, guys, let's talk about the last and probably most important piece of how I gained all this strength. And that is me fixing my very mediocre technique. So my previous technique was essentially trying to do a shitty amalgamation of a Olympic high bar squat and a powerlifting low bar squat. And I essentially took the worst from both camps and then combined them. So I was trying to push my quads or my knees as far forward as I could, put all the weight in my quads, and did not push out at all, while still having I would say, medium to wide stance. But the issue is that following my injury, a lot of the musculature around, specifically my right hip, but most of the muscles around both hips were significantly tighter because they just hadn't been moved as much. So I never regained the ability to hit depth by, sitting backward at all. I essentially was just trying to go forward. And even in this image, you can see like my knees are way the hell over my toes. And despite that, I'm still like not even really close to depth. Now, this is going to be a pretty exhaustive list, but I made a series of technical changes to make things a lot more friendly on my body. And this image here, it does not even fully do it justice. You will have seen earlier in the video a clip of me doing a 420-pound squat, which I would argue is about as close as I got to perfect technique during these 3 weeks. And that is where I would say the true technical prowess would lie. That said, this is not a bad example by any means. It is very close. And it is, the hip crease is roughly in line with the knee, and the thigh is slightly sloped downward, so that on its own is a really good sign. But how did I get there? So I widened my stance pretty significantly. Obviously, different angles between the two, but you can see that both my heels and my toes are closer to the outside of the rack. It's the same rack. And most importantly, I would say, is instead of focusing on pushing my knees forward and my trying to put the weight in my quads, I thought much more about sitting my glutes backward and pushing my knees out to the side laterally instead of moving them forward. Now, you've probably seen the old Mark Bell video with Ed Cohen, and he says, "Open your taint." It's a very graphic way of thinking about it, but it is true that essentially what you're trying to do is stick your butt backward and your knees out so that it opens up that region of your body that I won't say again. But the lateral movement part of this is actually extremely useful, especially for a long-legged person, because it actually gives you more room for your legs to go, because you can even see here, my knees are still way over my toes. What really happened is that I had more room for my butt and the back part of my thighs to actually move, because I moved them out to the side and not just forward. Something else that helped quite a lot with my technique and with my depth is that I would just take videos every week to post on here for you guys. And so I could say to myself, like, hey, get your shit together. That was like an inch high or whatever. And so I could then go back, do another single, make sure I went all the way down. And then I can post both of them and be like, hey, this one was kind of shitty, but here's a good one. Now, that said, I did already have bracing pretty much mastered. I would say that something I'm going to focus on in the future is bracing where the bar meets my back. I'm not super great about the upper back tightness in the squat, which is an important factor. If you imagine like a fishing pole, the weight is kind of at the top of that fishing pole. So you'd want that whole thing to be as stiff as possible, because if it's not and it's just soft at the top, then the top's going to bow and it's going to be an inefficient force transfer. But I mean, the main goal for me here was to fix my depth so that I could still be somewhat upright while also getting all the way down. And I would say I pretty much succeeded at that, because I'm still relatively upright in this video. Now, I do want to leave this note here that this program was designed specifically for me. There's a reason I left a lot of the language very vague in the program outline, because I don't want you guys to copy one for one what I'm doing, because it's probably not going to transfer as well to you as it did to me. Now, I'm willing to help you guys. I mean, I won't charge you anything even. If you just want to ask me a couple questions, you can just shoot me an email or a DM or leave a comment here. And I'll be able to help you with whatever you might be struggling with. But I do want you guys to know that a lot of designing a program is going to be around your individual weaknesses and your areas of improvement. Once you identify those, you can essentially just make a program all on your own, because you'll be able to target those weaknesses while keeping your strengths with. Thanks for watching, guys. I know this is probably about 3 weeks late by the time it got posted, but I did actually want to have a quality like presentation for you guys. I didn't just want it to be some chop job where I was breathing heavily, although there's still a lot of that. And I wanted to say I appreciate you guys' patience. So if you liked the video, go ahead and give it a like, leave a comment, please subscribe. That's all from me, guys. Thank you for watching.